but are there any, somebody want to say something, Ray or Brandon?
That's me. Can you hear me okay, Dave?
Yep.
When I talked to Mike earlier, he asked to put a set date for reorganizational meeting on the agenda. He recommends that we move it from the 4th to the 7th because Luann will have the meeting room set up for the election.
So when do we typically do that? Isn't it on the Thursday following the Tuesday vote? I mean, we've done that before in the past. So I don't know exactly the day that we vote. Is it March 5th?
Yeah, so that'll be on the 5th.
So
The 7th is a Thursday.
yeah, I mean, we've done that in the past. But I mean, it's a really, any of those I've ever attended, and a lot of them, I mean, it's just a matter of trying to name the newspaper and a few things, and then we're kind of done. So there's really nothing of significance. So he didn't say to move it for like 5 or until the next Monday, did he? Or, I don't know. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
He said Thursday, March 7th.
Yes, that's what I just said. Good. So I'll take that up under other business. We'll go down to 12 after the warrants. How's that? Are there any comments, first from citizens, on topics not on the agenda?
I got one.
Okay, Ray, go ahead.
If nobody's aware, the temporary bridge is open on the Scotty Basin and in use.
I think I saw the signs that were closed on the other lane, right? So the old one is closed?
Yep.
Yep, nice.
Yes.
Yep,
The old bridge, we shut it right down completely, and all the traffic's on the temporary bridge.
nice. Any other comments from citizens not on the agenda? Okay, Brandon, do you have any comment that's not on the agenda?
No, I can wait until my town manager report.
Okay. I have two. I attended the school meeting a week ago over at the school board meeting, and they're trying to navigate their way through their budget again. So the latest information I have, and I spoke with the town clerk's office this afternoon, Floanne was out, but Marion was in, and they haven't heard anything yet. So we're still waiting, which is really odd, on whether or not the school will postpone its voting and move to April, or the last I'd heard, something like April 15th. I do know that the Vermont House had voted to allow them to do that. I don't know where it stands with the Senate or the governor's office. What at the center of all this is an exorbitant property tax rise, virtually statewide. So I think there was some misunderstandings of how the formula would be implicated through the school budgets. And they signed their warnings. I'm hoping that the ballots aren't printed. There's a lot to talk about. There's a Board of Civil Authority meeting tomorrow night here. I'll remind the board that we should go to that. Maybe we'll have more information, I'm not sure. But I'm hoping that the ballots aren't printed, because if voters had voted by absentee ballot, they're going to be voting on these articles that will be postponed or voted on again. It's very confusing. In any event, the school, I think, is going to have additional meetings. They have to meet a new 30-day warning for a lower budget dollar amount. That's my understanding. I don't know where that's going to be. I would ask that anybody interested to follow that through the school. So that's it for that, because they wanted me to go and I went. The next thing up was, I had briefly seen a list of what people are going to be voted on, what offices are open, and I will I did it 1 year. I really liked it to say that I was in the very small footsteps of Red Butterfield as the town moderator. I will seek the moderator position for the school and the town and ask to be a write-in. I'm not on the ballot, so we'll see how that goes. That seems to be empty right now, and when I talked to the town clerk's office today, there didn't seem to be any interest in doing that. I think that's more or less of an organization on our town meetings. So I have 1 more year here up at this board, and I thought it might be a good fit to do that. The next up, we have the minutes of February 5th, 2024. I'd like a motion to approve those, please.
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the minutes of February 5th, 2024. Is there any discussion? Everybody okay?
Yes.
Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Let's move on to town meeting presentation. I'll turn that over to you, Brandon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Olivia, can you allow me to share my screen?
Okay, you should be fine now.
Okay. Alrighty. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can talk right over that, Brandon. I think Olivia's just gonna maybe scroll down or help us out, or maybe you can, I'm not sure about it, but so we'll be able to hear your voice if you want to keep going.
Yeah. So Article 1, I'm gonna get through the regular articles. Article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, is this the slide that you had a comment on, August?
I think it was slide 8. It looked like the numbering on slide 8. You're not quite there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, right there on the left-hand side of slide 8. I think you probably want to number those in sequence.
Ah, good catch.
It's Morse code.
Binary.
Okay. So yeah, we'll make that change. As far as the general fund proposed budget quick facts go, I listed these quick facts. Are there any other quick facts that anyone would like me to add?
I think that it's a good idea that you just, in the town meeting, and I'd like you to do it, where you could read those briefly, and so that if persons can't see them or don't understand them, or you'll be able to do that, just quickly list them, go down through. Since there's not terribly that many, it sometimes makes for a better presentation.
Yep, that sounds good. All right. This slide gives an overview of the general fund for 5 years, from FY21 to FY25, both revenues and expenses. Why is it going? Sorry, guys. One second. And in this slide, we listed some charts. Is there any other charts anyone would like to see for the general fund? The one on the top left gives an overview of each department's budget for FY25. The one on the right shows total expenditures for that year and total revenues versus tax dollars. This is something the previous town managers have done that I'm continuing. Do we still want to keep the chart on the top right?
At the top right or the top left?
Top right and top left.
Yeah, I like that because it does delineate it rather than just looking at some math. It actually looks at the percentages as part of a circle. The one thing that you want to remember is I think make sure that your graph, the print is large enough so that it shows up on screen. Like you don't want it to be that little. You want it to be, I think, a little bit bigger when we get into the whatever the screen is. Don't be afraid to make the print big.
So should I keep all 4 of these on one slide, or do you think I should break them out into individual slides?
Do any of them coordinate with each other, though? They kind of do, don't they, or not? One shows like the top left, doesn't it show this year's, yes, FY25 budget, and then you have, the bottom right one, it's a 10-year span, so they're quite a bit different. They're quite a bit different narratives there.
Yeah.
You might want to separate that. What's the board think?
How big will this be printed, letter size?
You mean like, would one of those quarters be a full?
Well, I mean, I like it how all 4 are here.
Yep.
Is it big enough for people to read?
It depends on the diameter of the screen up at the school, because we're gonna be at the school. So I don't know the projector, I don't know whether they can just push the plus and whether we can just, the image will be bigger or what, I don't know.
So that's my only thought, Brandon, is if it's big enough to read on the screen, you want people to be able to read it.
Yeah,
If not, I'd break them out.
yeah.
And I think when it's up on the projector, this slide should be big enough for all to see.
Right, less.
Is there a way to test it? No, not really, okay.
I can prepare for both instances.
Yeah,
I can have different versions, one like this and then one with them broken out just in case.
Yep.
Okay. Alright.
Any questions on this at all? No? Okay, go ahead.
This slide shows our reserve funds
yeah.
as of June 30th of 2023. Any questions on this slide? And the next question I have, if there are no questions on it, is how would the board like me to present the reserve funds? Would you like me to go through each one of the reserves?
I
Or give
wouldn't.
a overview?
I wouldn't.
No, I don't think that needs to be, but it's very important for people to be able to see like that what is there. I think for the most part, people identify and then they can look at the line that they're interested in. For instance, if you just pick one out and then they'll say, okay, what do you have in reserve for, let's say, a fire truck? They'll be able to go right to that and follow that across. So these are important, but I don't think you need to go down through and list them all off.
Okay. All right. And that's all I have for the general fund. Dave, I know you had mentioned giving the town a recap on what we've done for the past year.
Yes.
Where would you like that presented? In the beginning of the general fund?
Yes, as an overview, I think it would be really helpful. I know in the town report that when you look at the town manager's report, for instance, or even the select board from year to year, I think it's important for those people that go to the town meeting, that we have a small but short, to try to have a recap of what we've done as a group for the year on a variety of different subjects. Certainly, anything to do with ARPA, just very within a short paragraph. I'd like Brandon to do this. I absolutely think that the news about the water district should be talked about. I think, so there are several different points, I think, that are very helpful. And if anybody, I suggest that board members just ask Brandon or Mike that we develop this over the next 2 weeks. Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Brandon.
just wanted to just mention, as far as the slides go, I do think that as you're presenting, because we do have many people that may have, even, sight impairment, so on and so forth, that we put something out there that if there is difficulty seeing them, or if people have questions that, they can't read them, just so that we can clarify for those that may have some difficulty in seeing some of those line items and stuff.
Just as a point of a matter, I believe that the school it's only in person. They're not going to have virtual at their section of the meeting. However, that's still up in the air as far as SAPA will be live, but I don't even know the length of the school meeting. That's a whole nother issue, so. Go ahead, Brandon, I'll let you keep, but I did say that, so I don't know whether there's 4 or 5 topics that you or Mike or the group of us could come together with as far as a recap of what we think is, well, even the bridge, I mean, is, we've had some flooding damages. I mean, I think that we owe it to the residents to see, they obviously know what happened, but past that, what we're doing to correct some things that happened.
Okay. I'll put together a list and I'll circulate it to each board member and see if there's anything that I should add or revise, and I'll send that out probably next week.
Yep.
I think that's a great idea. Highlight.
The more you bring it to the residents, the better. So what's happened, like with the flooding or with some projects going on or whatever, then they know exactly where it is, what state it's in, whether it's completed, whether it's still up in the air, whether it's in progress, whatever's going on.
All right, Article 9. And then we have FY '25 proposed highway fund budget quick facts. So it just goes over that FY '25 budget that we're using 20,000 in cumulative fund balance. The total increase for the budget is actually 1.35%. We touch on the child care contribution payroll tax, since this is a new tax for the town with a 0.33%, 0.11% cost share. So we'll be prepared if anybody has any questions to explain that new tax. The budget does contain a full highway team with no personnel changes. It reduces workers' compensation by $10,000. Adds $5,000 to gravel and road material, contributes $50,000 to paving, $10,000 to paving repairs, and $16,500 for summer mowing, and fully funds all debt payments and operational costs. Are there any other points that you'd like me to make?
Nope.
Okay.
Is there anything, Ray is online, Ray, you okay with that? You've met with Brandon, you're okay?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay?
All right. And then we have the chart. This is what the charts look like if they're full screen and they're on a page by themselves. But a similar overview to the one that we did in the general fund. So for example, in FY '25, we have total expenses of 1.1 million, and then the total amount that we're raising in property taxes is 987,000, which has been fairly consistent the past 5 years. The reason this increased a little bit this year is because we started to reduce the amount of fund balance that we're using, and then also the increases in healthcare and so forth. All right, the next slide shows pie charts, and this is a side-by-side comparison from FY '24 to FY '25, how the highway fund breakdown looks like. So you can see in the maroon personnel, $625,391, and then when you go to the FY '25 highway fund breakdown, it's $641,000, and that includes total cost of employment for all personnel. So you have their salaries, unemployment, FICA, the child care contribution, the child care contribution, tax, retirement, health benefits, and workers' compensation. It also shows debt service, $100,957 last year, and then that reduced a little bit this year because as you pay the principal, interest reduces, so we didn't take on any additional debt. Road maintenance was $236,000 last year, and then it's $246,100 this year. Excuse me, yeah, $246,100 this year. Maintenance, repairs, and supplies with $75,000 last year and $75,000 this year. And then operations, $119,000 last year, $127,000 this year. And I'll go into a little bit more detail during the town meeting. I'm just kind of skimming it over with you guys because you know the budgets so well and not everyone does. So I'll explain each of these categories a little bit more and what makes up each category.
I wouldn't get too, I mean, they look very similar, so I don't know how much time you need to spend on them. Frankly, I don't see virtually any arguing. I mean, when you look at the cover page of highway, up 1.3%, people are gonna say, how are you doing it? Because the inflation rate was 8. That's the bottom line. So I don't think you're gonna see, so I don't know how much time, other than a pointed question about something on.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
I don't think you're
Unless
gonna.
someone asks a question, yeah.
Right. Any questions about highway from, no?
No?
Okay. Next one.
All right, highway fund reserves. So this shows our total reserves and how they're split up. $89,000 in highway equipment acquisition, $203,000 in highway capital maintenance and improvements. Any questions on this slide?
No, go ahead.
All right, town of Weathersfield long-term debt schedule. So this shows all of our debt and when it will mature. Any questions on our long-term debt schedule?
Nope.
At the bottom, it shows the capital principal, the capital interest, the total amount of debt that we pay per year, and then that's just a verification to make sure that it works out. So in FY '25, we have a total of $134,704 in principal, $17,000 in interest, for a grand total of $151,000. That does, in FY '26, that goes down to $96,000, unless we pick up an additional payment.
And that, that may happen, so I just leave these up in the air. I mean, it's a little more complicated now with interest up and the actual dollar amount of the things you might want to buy, but the debt, the way it exists now is what it is, and the contracts are done, so I wouldn't get stuck too much on this, and as far as like going out, a long way, it's a little hard to predict. But
And you can see the differences in interest, like if you go back pre-pandemic,
yep,
800 in interest or 6,800, and that's climbed to 21,000 in
Right.
FY '24, 17,000 in FY '25. That's still a pretty significant increase in the amount of interest we pay.
any questions on this side? Okay, go ahead.
All right, Article 10, solid waste management facility. Fixed expenses are increasing by 4,700 or 3%. Variable expenses are increasing by 38,000. The total proposed budget is increasing by 12%, or $43,000 overall. I just made a quick point that we continue to share our transfer station with Reading and West Windsor through our intermunicipal agreement, which includes a fair and equal payment structure through an allocation formula based on number of parcels. And then the cost of recycling continues to increase. In FY24, we budgeted $33,000. In FY25, we're proposing $69,000. So this is the largest contributor to punch ticket increases.
What was, can you remind me again, are we doing a 25-cent punch ticket increase or no increase, or?
So I think after we do our evaluation in August, I think you and I are gonna go down there.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna break out the numbers a lot more. And on the first meeting in July, when we set the tax rate, that's when we also set the permit sticker fee and the punch ticket fee.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I should be prepared in April, May to start having discussions about what that would look like.
Have you made, August, how many meetings have you gotten in on this on?
Since September.
So, I think this meeting is a good time to do a little bit more explaining about the solid waste. I mean, we have a negative balance that's growing, and I'd really like to get some input from residents somehow on, I know that when Mike sent out a survey, that it was something like 90% wanted the transfer station, okay? So the structure of the facility and a place to put that. But we keep struggling with costs. And I would like to be upfront to the residents about this so that we don't get pushback or about raising more fees. Or one of them is, I think that the residents need to be aware that it's something, the last time I remember, it was something like the cost of recyclables to our town is $60,000.
I think one thing we could do, I don't want to go into a deep dive, knowing that Brandon mentioned we have a couple things on the calendar coming up dealing directly with this. Mm-hmm. But I think perhaps, you're obviously showing here that you have percentage increases and cost increases, and perhaps adding a bullet that this will be an area of assessment by the town and the select board in 2024.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, somehow, I'd like to break the ice to say to the residents that this is, I mean, we just put so some of the things we did were really positive. We put a new compactor in. However, we don't want to really put material in there's only one landfill open in the state. And that's in Coventry, which is up by the border. Having said that, there doesn't seem to be enough recyclable companies that are accepting it without costing us a lot of money too. So, I don't know. And we're still in the contract with 2 other towns, so we need to be a little careful. Go ahead, Brandon.
I will add that additional bullet point and say this will be an area of assessment in 2024 to 2025.
And maybe use the word review instead of assessment, not to trigger anyone.
All right, the next slide. So what this slide shows is a 5-year overview of permit sticker revenue and punch ticket revenue and how that has been changing. So the permit sticker has stayed pretty, I see 142,671.02. I'll take away that 0.02 under FY24. The permit sticker has stayed pretty stable since FY21. It jumped up in FY24 mostly due to the compactor payment that we added into our fixed expenses. But punch ticket revenue has went from $193,000 in FY21 to $230,000 in FY25. So that's where most of the increases are coming from.
But so to August's point, is that 230 a result of raising the ticket on, let's say, July 1st in anticipation of, or is it that just sheer ticket number?
So this is the total amount of punch ticket revenue that we need to raise.
Oh,
So that's why, we've been increasing the punch ticket because we have to cover our variable expenses. So 230,852, we punch an estimated 49,500 times per year. So just quick calculations, we may need to raise it a quarter up to 450, but we'll do additional analysis to make sure that's gonna cover everything. Any questions on this slide? Great. That's pretty much the same slide because it's an enterprise fund. We should be net and zero on fixed and variable revenues and expenses each year. All right, this is a breakdown of our variable expenses, a 5-year overview. The green is trash, the maroon is C&D, the light green is recycling, and then the pink is glass, compost, and tires. So you can see here the differences in recycling between FY21 to FY25. Everything else has stayed pretty consistent with the exception of recycling. And everybody understands what happened with China, right? Okay, so that's the main driver in our expenditure increase in recycling.
And I got something real quick too, Brandon. If I may.
yeah, go ahead, Ray.
The state is working really, really hard to encourage more recycling. And you can tell by looking at this that the trash has kind of gone down or stayed pretty stagnant, but the recycling is going up. So we're losing the revenue on the trash, and it's costing us more to recycle.
Yeah.
And the recycling revenue is no longer there. According, China no longer takes recycling, so there's no place to sell it. It's kind of a compounding trend.
And then the cost to get rid of it has also increased. Fuel, labor.
Yeah, recycling, we used to make money on cardboard and metal and tin cans, and we don't do that. There's no market for it anymore. It's fallen right apart.
Well, I think what's going on is the companies that are accepting it have a cost to regenerate what they're trying to make. I wouldn't say that it's worth nothing, but they are having a cost in grinding it up and making something new, which is a little different. So, to the public it would be, even to me it would be. It would make more sense to be willing to pay for something that's going to get ground up to make something rather than go into a landfill.
Right. And when China was taking everything, all the statewide, in the United States, all the cities closed. So the infrastructure is gone for recycling. They're slowly trying to build it back up so we can recycle our own stuff.
Right.
It'll happen. It's just going to take time.
Yep. Yep.
All right, any questions about variable expenses?
No.
Nope.
This slide shows our fixed revenues. So this is the solid waste fee assessments by town for 5 years. Back in FY21 and FY22, that's when we started to realize that we needed to develop some kind of a fair and equal payment structure. So back in FY21, Reading's assessment was $18,000, West Windsor was paying $16,000. And then you can see in FY23, that was the first year that we started the solid waste fee assessment in all 3 towns. Weathersfield assessment dropped to 66,000. Reading started increasing, and West Windsor started increasing. So now we take the total fixed costs to operate the transfer station, and then we divide each by the number of parcels that we agreed upon for each town, and that's how you get your assessment per town. Any questions on that?
No.
Nope.
All right, Article 11. Ray and I have not developed any content for this yet. Plan to this week. Does anybody have any comments or anything you'd like us to add for this?
None from me,
Right.
no.
We'll share an updated PowerPoint when we complete it with you guys. Article 12. We have the pictures for Article 12 and Article 13, all the nonprofits, so these ones have their logos.
And the size of the font underneath the article, so when this is projected on a larger screen, that'll be easier for the audience to read?
Can you read it on your end right now, August?
Well, the screen that we're looking at is fairly small. On the computer, it seems fine, but, you know, if the audience is able to read that font, it seems like you have a little bit more room to make it bigger. And, I just think that might be easier for people to read from the screen.
Yeah, within the red space and maybe a,
Boulder Prime or something.
yeah.
Okay,
Maybe you could put the article name at the top, and then put all the words in the red box, and then you have a lot more room.
okay. That's a good idea. I'll make that change.
Yeah, the font that you actually have Article 12 in would be a nice font to do the rest of it also. It might be easier for people visually.
Yep. So I'll put the article number on the top in the blank white space, and then we'll fill the red
Yeah, nice.
with the rest of the text and make it bigger.
But the logo's a good idea, so, and I don't know whether any representative of any of these organizations will come to town meetings. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So, the moderator, I'm sure, he'll read the article and then give them a chance to comment, or anybody to have a question, so.
That's it.
You done, yep, okay. Any questions on the presentation so far?
It's a great slideshow.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Any questions at all, so we can move on to the next subject about this? And like, if you're going to, do a little add-ons or something, Brandon, you just ship it out through email to everybody, and then we can
Yes.
comment on it or something, because we're not gonna have another meeting, so,
Yeah, sounds good.
okay. Next up, we're going to warn a public hearing for zoning bylaw amendments. It says here Article 2 and 7, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but,
Page 10 and page 9. It seems pretty straightforward.
okay,
And my observation is with the airstrip basically abutting and bleeding into our town, you know, and they do have Brandon could probably speak to it, but,
well, yeah, I see, Ryan, who's land use, so I'll give the floor to him in a second, but so, can you hear me, Ryan?
Yep.
Okay, why don't I turn it over to you, and then you can identify the two, I guess, like, issues, I guess there's two, so it says Article 2 and 7, and then, I don't think this is gonna be controversial, we'll set a hearing date for what the date that you propose, which is the next page, so on page 10. So I'm on page 9 now of our packet, so I'll turn the floor over to you, and then you can give us a brief, description of what's going on.
Sure. Yeah, so the planning commission reviewed a letter that was sent around from the state that explained the process for these restricted landing areas and
He froze.
Okay. Is that our end, or there's no way of telling?
I'm sure that's his end.
Sorry, what was that?
Okay.
Okay, you froze for just a second, so you left us at the state of Vermont wanted to have, some kind of language about airstrips and helicopter pads, so, but I don't know that we just lost you on our end, I don't know yet. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sometimes this computer is weird, but
Yeah, okay.
I'm in the library, so if it doesn't work out, I can come over later. But the state regulates restricted landing areas, and they require municipal approval before they do that. However, most towns don't have any way to do these reviews because it's not in their bylaws. They don't have a standalone ordinance or something to that effect. So what the Planning Commission basically did, very simply, Article 2 is the use tables, and it lists these private airstrips and helipads as a prohibited use in all districts, partly because it's pretty impactful to abutting properties, as well as the airport in Springfield is a maybe underused or valuable resource that we'd rather encourage people to use that than build their own on their properties. So it's prohibited in all districts, and then Article 7 is just the definitions, so that's where the definition of private helipad or airstrip is contained.
So, when we make a motion to do this public hearing, I'm assuming that it has to go, does this have to go through, so this is a zoning, amendment to the bylaws. Does it have to go through a set of 3 hearings to give opportunity for people to comment? How does that work? So this will be the first one on March 18th?
It would be the first for the select board. So the planning commission has had their hearing, and the planning commission and the select board both have to have at least one hearing. And I think the way that we've done the past bylaw amendment is after it passed the planning commission, it gets sent to the select board, and we had kind of the first discussion, and the hearing was continued and picked up at the next one and was approved then. So that at least gave 2 select board meetings where the public could come and comment and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So rather than warn multiple hearings, that first hearing can be continued until the select board is ready to make a decision.
Right. And so the board can got 2 choices on any one of these things. Can they make it an interim bylaw, or does it become an automatic one, or it turns over to voting at some point, right? So the select board can, after it goes through the planning commission, like you identified, on any bylaw, then we have a hearing here at this table, and then usually we give time, like you just said, to have another board meeting, but we could close the hearing then and either act or, my recollection is the board can act on it or give it to the voters to vote on.
Right, yeah, so they can vote to adopt it as is.
Right.
They can suggest changes, which sends it back to the planning commission.
Right.
Or they can deny it, which also effectively sends it back to the planning commission. Which would just basically be starting over, or the planning commission can decide whether they want to abandon it or change things. But yeah, the select board can also elect to bring it to the voters at a town meeting. And then alternatively, after the select board has made a decision, I think it's 5%, it's somewhere, it's in that memo that's in your packet. I think it's 5% of the voters in town can petition to have it brought to a public vote at a town meeting.
I'm not sure that it has to be to a regular town meeting though, and it sounds like we're gonna have another school meeting, then we're gonna have a town vote in August for the primary, we're gonna have another one in November, we're voting a lot this year. So, and I'm not saying that we're gonna do that on this one, but I'm just trying to remember what, on these public hearings, when they have zoning bylaws come to us to think about in a hearing, that's all. Are there any questions of Ryan about this from the board? Okay, I'd like a motion then that we have a public hearing on, is there Is there a number here that we should be making this motion about the zoning bylaws, Ryan? Or I don't see it in the,
A number of what?
the actual number that you've associated with for this zoning bylaw
Section
change?
number? Well, I guess just Article 2 and Article 7.
Okay.
Because Article 7 is the whole definitions, and Article 2 is each of the use tables for the different districts.
I just wanted to reference it to what we're having this public hearing about. It's about private airstrips and helipads.
Right.
Yep. Somebody want to make that motion?
I move to approve the notice of public hearing for 18 March on the topic of private airstrips and helipads and impacted in the zoning, Article 2, zoning districts and district standards, Article 7, definitions.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to warn a public hearing to talk about the zoning bylaw changes on Monday, March 18th at 6:30 PM, referencing private airstrips and helipads, and Article 2 and Article 7 in the zoning bylaws dealing with those subjects. Any discussion? The one question I have, Brandon, I don't know if you can hear me, is March 18th a regular board meeting as well?
Let me take a peek. Yes.
Okay, so that'll be the first order of business up at 6:30, okay? Everybody up on that? Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yep. Now we have the Scottney Bridge. I don't know if, Brandon, you want to take this, the Basin Bridge RFP? Or Ray still on probably too? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Ray can talk about it, and I can fill in any gaps if necessary.
Okay? You want to take it, Ray?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
thank you.
So, I know we usually have a 30-day window for bids for a minimum. We extended this. There is a lot of technical information in the packet for people to digest. The end result's going to be the same. It's going to be a flat-bottomed, solid concrete deck, but there's different ways to design it and install it. You can get a precast. You can pour it in place. You can pour it on the side of the road up there, and when it hardens, you can put it in place. Those are all things that a lot of questions are going to be generated on. So we have to allow enough time for the questions to be answered, and then all the contractors to get their answer from their precast people or the people designing their bridge they're going to propose to us. That's why it's such a long process. Other than that, it's fairly straightforward. We worked with the engineer. Luckily, we already had the design for the bridge. And he's going to try to attend the question period. If not, we'll get all the questions to him to help us answer them. And hopefully we can get this out and get a good competition going for getting the bridge replaced.
So if you turn to, on page, for everybody here, up here, 15, so when you just said that it's gonna be like a long process and like a lot of time, on page 15, that really doesn't give a lot of time. So, I mean, the question period ends on March 18th, which is
Correct.
right around the corner.
Where they need the most, they can ask questions from the 21st, the day they get the bid, all the way up to the 18th. Where they need the time is from the 18th to the time they have to have the bid in.
April 30th.
Okay.
Once it
Yep.
closes, the questions come in, and they'll have their answer from the engineer on whether their design is acceptable or not, and then they can make adjustments and come up with their options.
Okay, so where is FEMA with this? Brandon, you might know the answer to that. Are they
It's
aware?
under review. It's under local review or state review right now.
So, does this, in this package of like, I saw the pages, like 1,000 pages, is there a one-line disclaimer in there saying that this is relying on FEMA reimbursement? Because if it's not, then, I don't know what to say about that, but, I mean, I'm assuming this is gonna be significant funds, so,
All you can do is go by the assumption it's gonna be significant funds from FEMA. It's under review, you're not gonna get a definite answer either way from FEMA. The bridge has to be fixed. That was discussed quite a while ago at the board meetings. And yes, it's a gamble, and where all indications are, it's gonna be covered. But you don't get anything in writing, it's the federal government.
do
I
they?
can't answer that, sorry.
No, that's okay, but do they have, so you're in contact with either AOT or somebody at the statewide that's handling that, or somebody, Brandon, like somebody?
FEMA, you have to go through FEMA, and they reviewed the whole thing, they've accepted everything, and they passed it on to the state for their review and their acceptance. No questions have come up, no red flags have come up, and it seems that the process is moving along nicely. That's all I can say.
And according to our FEMA rep, they said that the project will be covered as long as the damage occurred during the July storm.
And it did, so that's good.
Yeah.
So the bid process, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, so the bid process, we should put the bids out, and then it would be the acceptance process that I'd like a little more clarity about, right? So this is just a bid, so, you know, and you've got dates and everything lined up. So, I guess, we need to go forward with this. I mean, we spent the money on the secondary bridge. So at the, let's see, do you have I'd like this motion to be on the table then, that the board support a request for bids to replace the Ascutney Basin Bridge with the dates and times that are noted in the presentation made by the Highway Superintendent Ray and the town manager. Somebody can make that motion, please?
Okay, I'm gonna try to get that right.
Well, we're just identifying and I didn't want to get wound up into the dates, that's why I said with the dates that are on the proposal.
So we're moving to approve the request for bid process?
Yep,
Okay.
for the Ascutney Basin Bridge.
Yep, move to approve the request for bid process to go forward for the Ascutney Basin Road, bridge number 63.
Yep.
In accordance with the presentation and the timeline listed in the presentation. I should say the calendar, not
Yes,
timeline.
yes. Because there's a lot of dates here, and I just didn't want to get into the, you know, the bid things and whatever.
Is that okay, Nicole?
I'll second.
The motion been made and seconded to approve the Ascutney Basin Bridge bid project with the dates that are noted. I'll make it really clear. On page 15 in our packet tonight, which is February 20th, 2024, the dates that are noted. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Town manager update?
Yeah, I just got a couple of quick things. Project sponsorship. In the last meeting, the select board voted to sponsor the project at 7219 Route 106. At that time, it was a 75%, 25% cost share. So the landowner was responsible for 25% of the project cost. I spoke with the USDA today, and they requested 100%, that the USDA would cover 100% of those costs. And just a little while ago, I did receive notification that that request was approved. So that project is being covered 100%, and the landowner no longer needs to pay the $12,500. So that's really good news for them.
Now, who did that come from? You said USDA or not NRCS or no? So, which one?
It's NRCS, but it's through the USDA.
Yeah.
Internet. So I still have not signed the contract with Comcast. We've been exploring consolidated communications, Starlink and First Light to see what the best option is for the town. And at this time, we believe that is First Light. They offer a dedicated symmetrical fiber internet with a static IP address. The library director and I are partnering on this in an effort to reduce the cost of internet services. So Comcast also holds our phone contract, and I have not signed that either. It's negotiated and pending signature, but we decided to explore Key Communications and First Choice, both of which are local businesses. I found it very difficult to get problem solved with Comcast, specifically going back to our issues that we had at the transfer station. So we decided to explore other options. And this also kind of started back when we were having issues with our Zoom, because people from home were having issues with our Zoom, but it appeared in the meeting that everything was fine. And I guess that goes back to our upload and download speed. So our upload speed with Comcast is 100 megabytes per second, and then our download speed is 25 megabytes per second. So it's fast if you're in the building, but if you're joining a Zoom meeting from home, your speed is only 25 megabytes per second. And we didn't know that. First Light offers that symmetrical service, so if you get 100 megabytes per second, it's for your upload and download speed. We're working with IT on this project as well, and I'll keep you updated as we move along. 2024 town manager and select board goals. So we did not set specific goals this past year. Usually we set those the second meeting in March, I believe, Dave. So I just want to give everyone a heads up to start thinking about what your goals are this year. I'm going to also make town manager goals for everyone in the administration, including the highway department, and then if the board can make and set goals as well, that'll be helpful over the next year. Town health officer. The work related to the town health officer position has been increasing, and it's taken quite a bit of my time, especially last week and the week prior. And it looks like there's more health officer issues coming up next week, so it's going to take quite a chunk of my time next week. And I really think I need to focus on other things. So I'd like to advertise a vacancy for the town health officer position to see if there's anyone in town that's interested to be the health officer. I'll continue to fill the position until we find someone else, but I think it's time that we find a person to fill that position. Any questions?
I would advise you to, particularly with like the highway garage, I would definitely inquire about TDS fiber. They've upgraded all the way around me, and it's right past there, and I would not lock into a necessary contract with one provider particularly to go over to do that. I think you'll be amazed at the time saving that it might be to utilize that more. And I'm sure that will hook up to your, I'm sure that computer with the fiber would go onto your Comcast or whatever provider that you had. But you don't need to be the same one.
No, and for the highway garage, we looked into it. So TDS may be an option for the highway garage, but it's not an option for the town office.
No, I know that, because they don't have fiber here, right.
We're gonna be in multiple contracts.
Yes.
Like schoolhouses, detail, and then we're gonna find the best option for the highway garage too, who's currently with Comcast.
The garage is with Comcast too?
Yes.
Well, I'm just saying that if you and I talked about this before, because the package, when you found out, had quite a bit more frills on it, that if you're going to look at that, then I think you should consider, because of the major upgrade that TDS has made, it's going right by the yard, right there anyway, so that's all I meant by that. And I don't know, the transfer station doesn't have internet? I don't know if it has a need for it, but,
That's been an issue for a while, and they still haven't fixed this. You know, with Comcast, you have to call an 800 number, that never pans out, and then you send an email and you never get a response. So that's one of our biggest reasons for wanting to switch to a different company. In addition to that is, you know, what's the best internet? Well, they don't provide a symmetrical option at Comcast, so we're looking for that download speed.
well, but my question was, does the transfer station have internet now? Is that through Comcast too?
They really need internet. I want to get the security cameras up and running, and I can't do that without internet. And also, there's reporting that Tyler can do online to the town accountant instead of downloading it on a little, what do we call it? He downloads all the punches and stuff and has to enter them by hand. It'd be a lot easier to just put it on the computer and send it over to the accountant.
Well, all I'm saying is, I'm pretty sure that TDS line is through that area too, so I would take advantage of a higher speed, lower cost plan. And I don't think you're gonna find one, my point is, I don't think you're gonna find one, carrier to solve what you're looking for, Brandon. So I think it is what it is, the geography.
Yeah, it is.
Any questions about Brandon's report at all? Any other questions?
No.
Nothing?
What really bothers me, Dave, is at the 1879 schoolhouse, we have VTEL internet, 1,000 megabytes per second, and I think we pay $50 a month.
And that should be a little more than that, but that's, I don't wanna talk about that. But it is $50, it's fiber, and it's $50 a month, I know. They strung that, go ahead.
You can't find those prices anywhere else. For example,
No.
for First Light, for us to have First Light at the town office, 200 megabytes per second, it's nearly $300 per month. And with Comcast, I believe for 150 megabytes per second, it's about $200 per month.
I think that, I'm just doing this from memory, I think that bill should be $80 a month, but that line got revamped by Vermont Telephone specifically for the food shelf during COVID.
Yes.
I absolutely know that's the truth. I was in on the discussion. So, but I don't know how far that fiber goes up through the village of Perkinsville, but I know that new line had to be done to make that happen. So,
Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't get detail over at the town office or library, but
some of it's got to do with cost, and some of it's got to do with licensing. So, I mean, I get the whole picture. I do think overall, though, the town is, I've already said this before, that the town is getting much better service. I know there are hiccups all the way, and I know that you have to look at how much you're paying and what is in that. I get that. But that's some of our responsibility as persons that happen to buy something too, so. Any other comments about the town manager report? Okay. There are no appointments for tonight. I think before we get up to the warrants, why don't we move up if anybody objects, I don't think anybody will, but, so, I don't know that we need a vote for this, but I'll just say that we're going to have our next meeting on March 7th at 6:30 PM for reorganization, and there might be a couple of things underneath that as well. The newspaper of record, I don't know, Brandon, you'll be able to get that from last year, what other information. There may even be some warrants, I'm not sure, but it'll be a very short meeting. And then the meeting after that will be the 18th, which will be the Monday. And it will be the zoning hearing right up front, and then our regular business. So, Is that okay with everybody? And just as a reminder, tomorrow night is a BCA meeting to pretty much allow Floanne to hire persons to work here at the election. That's what I got told today. Okay, how about the warrants?
I'll make a motion that we approve the warrants. General fund, payroll, $24,840.56. Operating expenses, $28,066.26. Highway fund, payroll, $16,185.79. Operating expenses, $22,245.54. Solid waste, payroll, $2,861.03. Operating expenses, $655.29. Library, payroll, $3,543.69. There are no operating expenses. Reserve fund for the Scutney Volunteer Fire Department tanker, $147,341. FEMA funded temporary bridge, $71,000. Grant fund, $7,926.36, which that total of that for operating expenses for that was $226,267.36. Grand totals for payroll, $47,431.07. Operating expenses, $277,234.45.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the warrants dated February 20th, 2024. Is there any discussion? No questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. I just took up the, we're going to do another business, so in the regular meetings, let's follow that closely. I'm sure we'll be notified by the town office. Motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make it to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nice, thank you.
All right, you guys have